when he was in, when he was in New York, he actually told many times that he actually had dreams of him coming and preaching in New York and walking certain streets. There's actually recollection, I think it's in the Transcendental Diary, where Srila Prabhupada is actually saying that he had dreams of actually coming and preaching in the West before. So when, pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada and all of them even take rest, they're never under the influence of Mahamaya. They're always under the influence of Yogamaya. And they would be on the same level, and they would have lots of friendly conversations. Even after the entire Mahabharata battle was done, Arjuna was living in. What's the name of the Kaurava who pulled on Draupadi's sari? What's his name? Dushasana. Dushasana had the most luxurious palace, and Arjuna, basically after he had won the war, and he was given that palace, and Krishna would go and stay with him, and it would just be him and Arjuna, just having a very close relationship with each other. And so many times, the members of Dwaraka would come to be with the Pandavas and Indraprastha, and then they would send all of them away. All of them would go away along with Lord Balaram and everyone else. But Krishna would stay back to spend some time with Arjuna, and they would go on their own pleasure rides, and they had their own rasa that they would share amongst each other. So, like this, they had such a beautiful relationship. But when it was time, Arjuna, for the benefit of the entire human society, many Sri Vaishnavas actually, they say, very good, in the 11th chapter of the 11th chapter, Arjuna is apologizing to Krishna that, oh, I called you my dear friend. Actually, I shouldn't call you like that. I need to have more reverence towards you. Many, Sri Vaishnavas and members of other sampradaya, they say, very good. Finally, he's realizing the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But, I remember listening to a lecture by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, and he was making this point. But from a Gaudiya Vaishnava point of view, it's actually a step down, for someone like Arjuna, because the entire reason that even Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes is so that, he can give out the spontaneous love for Krishna that different residents of the spiritual world have. Of course, the topmost being the residents of Vrindavan. But we can also see, Arjuna also had a very nice, friendly relationship with Krishna. But for the benefit of the whole world, he takes upon this role of being a student, and Krishna takes upon the role of being the teacher. Actually, there's no question, of Arjuna even coming under illusion, but that's the role that they play. We see in the Krishna book, Prabhupada writes that Krishna and Arjuna were also Nara Narayana in their past lives. They were Nara Narayana, but before when they appeared. One of the great, one of the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Nara, who's Arjuna, and Narayana, who's Krishna himself. We see this, and this is actually mentioned when Krishna and Arjuna go all the way to the abode of Mahavishnu to bring back the souls of this Brahmana whose sons were always dying in Dwaraka. So when they went, Mahavishnu tells them, actually, I enacted this entire pastime because I wanted to get darshan of Nara and Narayana. So there's no question of Arjuna being an illusion, but for the sake of this, for the sake of the enlightenment of the whole world, they takes upon this role of being under illusion, and takes upon this role of being a student, and Krishna takes upon this role of being the teacher. Srila Prabhupada is making this point that, however one wants to reciprocate with the Supreme Lord, although he is superior to everyone, Ekala Ishvara Krishna, Arasabhabhritya, Krishna is the one supreme controller and everyone else is subservient to him, still we actually find and we actually see the Supreme Personality of Godhead is more than willing to take upon the role of being the son of the devotee, or being the friend of the devotee, or being the conjugal lover of the devotee. Whatever desire one may have, yam krodha kama sahaja pranayadi bhiti vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevya bhavai sanchintya sadrishim tanumapure te govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. That, whatever rasa that one wants to exchange with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whatever rasa is there, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is willing to have that loving exchange with that devotee on that particular level. He's more than willing to do so. That's actually what he's really, really into. Everyone wants to have a nice, loving relationship with their friends. Well, who's a better friend than Krishna? Who's a better friend than Krishna? When Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Devotion that when Krishna becomes one's friend, he is freed from the association of all the mundane wranglers. Our friends who are not devotees are simply mundane wranglers. They just like to waste time. Mundane fools talking about mundane things which have nothing to do with anything real. They just waste our time, and they waste their time also. But Prabhupada said when Krishna becomes one's friend, he is freed from the association of all mundane wranglers. If you want to have a lover, who is a better person to fall in love with than Krishna? Is there anyone better than Krishna to fall in love with? No, there's no one better than Krishna. Because, no matter how close two people are in this material world, because they're trying to serve each other on the material platform, there's something that the servant is going to do which is going to fry out the master, and there's something the master is going to do which is going to fry out the servant, and there's never going to be a point of time of perfect harmony between the master and the servant on a material platform. It's impossible to have, because this material world by nature is limited. Any relationship we have on the mundane platform is sure to disappoint us, 100% guaranteed. That's the experience of every living entity at any given point of time in this material world. There is no such relationship on the mundane platform where everything is just going to be just amazing. It just shows you like that in the movies. That's what they make you believe, that and they live happily ever after. Yeah, right. In the world of death, they lived happily ever after. What nonsense is this? But they make you believe, oh wow, we're living happily ever after in the world of death. How is this possible? It's just a fairy tale story. Although there's so many romantic conceptions of this material world, the bottom line truth is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam, that birth, death, old age and disease is coming for everyone, no matter who we are, no matter where we're from, no matter how many good friends we have, how many bad friends we have. Everyone has to get darshana of the dukkha, of the misery of this material world. That's why a person who's serious about their spiritual life has a very pessimistic attitude towards this material world, because there is no happiness in this material world. It's simply Shruti Sukha. It's simply happiness that we hear about. But that's not the happiness that we experience with Krishna. The happiness we experience with Krishna and association with the devotees of Krishna is nothing like the happiness that we experience from this horrible, miserable material existence. Why? Because of this simple reason. Because Krishna is, the Bhakta is eternal, the Bhakti is eternal, and Bhagavan is eternal. Basically, the devotee is eternal, devotional service is eternal, and the Supreme Personality of God is eternal. And because of that, naturally, if we are investing our time in an eternal relationship, there is no question of frustration, because there is no question of saturation. But in this material world, there is only frustration, because at every given point of time, there is saturation. At every given point of time, even if you're under the illusion that, wow, I can live with this person my whole life, there's going to come a point of time where you're going to die, or she's going to die, or he's going to die, right? So where is there a question of this? But it's not like that with Krishna. Yadrishi Yadrishi Shraddha Siddhir Bhavati Tadrishi. That, depending upon one's faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to that degree Krishna gives them perfection in their relationship with Him. It's very easy over here. We can understand. It's not rocket science. It's so simple to understand. And Krishna is more than willing to have this relationship with the person. Krishna is more than willing to have a relationship. But the problem is we don't want to have a relationship with that. When push comes to shove, what are we taking shelter of? Are we taking shelter of Krishna, or are we taking shelter of Maya? The thing is, the truth is, once we get a taste for Krishna consciousness, no matter how far we go away, how much, even so many people, they get so puffed up, they say stupid things, they say dumb things, they make dumb choices, and they leave. And they go away. But they still can never forget the ecstatic taste of devotional service that they experience. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur calls it the ghost of bhakti. The ghost of devotion will always haunt them wherever they go, because they can never forget, that, yes, I'm really trying to sit in this bar and trying to enjoy with my friends, or I'm really trying to, smoke this blunt, or smoke this bowl and really have a good time with all my buddies, and here I am listening to my favorite artist in the concert. But they will know in the back of their mind that this is actually nothing compared to the ecstasy I was feeling from eating that pakora in the Sunday feast. It's just a completely different transcendental taste. Krishna consciousness is on a completely different platform that we cannot even imagine. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is there to give us this taste. Therefore, we should hold on very tightly. We see over here that Srila Prabhupada, he's taking upon, and he's taking upon this, he's talking about Krishna taking upon this role of being the Guru. Krishna Vande Jagat Guru. This Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is the Supreme Spiritual Master also. No one else can be a better spiritual master than Krishna. Krishna himself is teaching, he has come to give this transcendental knowledge. Kapilas Sattva Sankhyata Bhagavan Atma Maya Swayam Aja Bhagavan Sakshat Atma Pragyayate Nirnam. That, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also sometimes called as Tattva Sankhyata, which means that one who's the expounder of the Absolute Truth. Krishna is the expounder of the Absolute Truth, and he comes to expound this great understanding of himself, because there is no higher taste, there's no higher nectar, there's no higher pleasure for the senses than hearing about Krishna. And why does he come down to do? He does it to Atma Pragyayate Nirnam. He comes to enlighten the fallen conditioned souls from their miserable existence. Now you can pull up Canto 3, Chapter 5, text number 2. The Srimad Bhagavatam speaks about what the real nectar, what the real pleasure of the spirit soul is. The real nectar, the real pleasure that is of the spirit soul, 3:25:2. Can we just download the app for him? Pocket way this.
This is on his computer.
Oh, it's on his computer. Okay. 3:25:2, not 352. Okay, anyway. Never mind. We're running out of time. I'll just pull it up myself. So, there's this ecstatic verse where it says that, especially the last line of the Sanskrit is so amazing. Bhuri tripyanti me savaha. Then there is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipful or more mature or yogi than me, than Krishna. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him is the actual pleasure of the senses. Krishna is known as Govinda. Why? Because he's actually has the ability. Vishruto Shrutadevasya Bhuri Triptyanti Me Savaha. Because Krishna has the ability to give real pleasure to the senses. There is no greater pleasure to the senses than actually hearing about Krishna. There is no greater pleasure. There is no greater pleasure. You can show the purport real quick. There you go. Wow, boom. This is the verse. This is confirmed here in where is that? Supreme Entity. Okay. Next, yeah, go a little bit more. These call one more. Is there another? Okay, yeah. There you go. Anyone who is associated with the Supreme Lord is accepted as a first-class yogi. Devotees may not be as powerful as the Supreme Lord, but by constant association with the Lord, they become as good as the Lord himself. Sometimes the devotees are more powerful than the Lord. Of course, that is the Lord's concession. This is a very important point, that the great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna is so kind upon them that he even bestows with them superior potencies sometimes. We can see this in our own life. Has there been an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who spread his glories all over the world? No. Krishna left that credit for Srila Prabhupada. Krishna left that credit. Has there ever been a more munificent manifestation of the Lord's mercy as Srila Prabhupada? No. Krishna left that mercy for Srila Prabhupada to actually come and do. Srila Prabhupada is Krishna's Senapati Bhakta, is Lord Chaitanya's Senapati Bhakta. Srila Prabhupada is actually predicted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where he says that he's going to send his commander-in-chief. His commander-in-chief, the commander-in-chief of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan army is none other than Srila Prabhupada, who actually came to come and deliver the Western worlds from this misery of material existence. He came and he actually spread Krishna consciousness all over the world and did it in a way that no one else had ever done. That is the unique position of Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada has come to assist Krishna in his mission of Tattva Sankhyata. He's come to assist Krishna in his mission of Atma Pragnayate Niram. One of Krishna's main mission is Tattva Sankhyata. He wants to expound the absolute truth. One of Krishna's great mission is to enlighten the common populace. Who did it better than Srila Prabhupada? You see, Srila Prabhupada, he's the one, he's the one who is empowered by Krishna to such a degree that his books have the potency to go reach any living entity at any given point of time and completely change their lives once and for all. Completely, once and for all. Why? Because that is the nature of the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada is always so grave. He's always very grave. Actually, many devotees, we were looking at memories of Srila Prabhupada, and I was looking at my own spiritual master's memory of Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Swami Maharaj's memory of Srila Prabhupada. And he was thinking, okay, Srila Prabhupada is going to be coming down the stairs. I just want to just quickly get a glimpse of him, and then I'll quickly offer my obeisances. But before he could do that, he was just on the floor. When he got up and he saw, the wound that he felt from Srila Prabhupada was one of great gravity. It was so grave. It was so sobering. Srila Prabhupada's presence was so sobering that, all the devotees around him, it was so obvious. Although from an external point of view, Srila Prabhupada wasn't so tall, and Brahmananda and Bhavananda were like two really, really tall devotees. It was very obvious to everyone that Srila Prabhupada was the boss. Everyone could understand how, just by the gravity of that. Why? Because the great Acharya is a spiritual master. Acharya mam vijaniyam. That the spiritual master is not different from Krishna himself. He is carrying the burden of the entire Guru Parampara. He's carrying the weight of the Parampara. He's carrying not the burden, he's carrying the weight of the Guru Parampara. He's carrying that weight. How heavy is Krishna? How heavy is Stone Mountain? How heavy is Atlanta? How heavy is Georgia? How heavy is this entire planet? How heavy are all the planetary systems? How heavy is the universe? How heavy are all the universes? Still, they're simply resting as a mustard seed on Anantashesha's head, who's simply who doesn't even feel it. He doesn't even know that it's there. It's so heavy. But the spiritual master is carrying Krishna in his heart, who's the master of all these things. He's carrying the absolute truth with him. Therefore, one must be very careful in how they associate with the spiritual master. Sadhu Savdan. One must be very careful not to become familiar with the spiritual master. You don't go to the spiritual master and say, hey Guru, they give me a 5 so I know you're alive. No, you don't say that. You offer your humble obeisances unto the spiritual master. Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. You offer your humble obeisances to him. You worship him. The more one worships the spiritual master, the more one becomes empowered to actually perform the mission of the spiritual master. We have practical experience of this. We've seen, it's, from a material point of view, it almost seems impossible for someone to write a book like Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava. It really seems impossible. I don't know how such transcendent realization can come about. But I'm learning to worship my spiritual master from the way he worships his spiritual master and the previous spiritual masters, that such a book can even come into manifestation. It almost seems impossible, but being fixed on the lotus feet of the spiritual master, who's so grave, who's so amazing, then we can actually understand, that this is actually required, that one must, gravity means one must be, fixed, one must be anchored down into Tattva Gyan, one must be anchored down into inquiring always into the nature of the absolute truth. One must be anchored down into seeing how they can always serve their spiritual master, how they can always serve the previous acharyas. Parampara chano bhalo mate. One must not be, one must, not be lazy in understanding the Guru Parampara. It's a very, very important thing. And, it takes a lot of effort to actually stick it out in Krishna consciousness, A small thing happens, you're ready to give up in no time. Small thing, some small stupid thing happens. Ready to give up our Sharanagati that we made to our spiritual master, the vows that we made to our spiritual master. We just small things, some small stupid thing happens. Even why small thing, even big thing may happen. But we should never leave the service of the spiritual master, because ultimately that's what's going to save us. That's our only means of redemption. There is no other better means of redemption than this. Krishna himself has come as a spiritual master. Krishna Sakshat Dharitveena Samatha Shastra Ukta Sata Bhavyata Eva Sadbihi Kintu Prabhorya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. That is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the spiritual master is not different from him because he's so dear to him. It's not that Guru and Krishna are one and the same, but the Guru is so dear to Krishna that he represents Krishna perfectly. Therefore, the spiritual master should be taken with the utmost seriousness. One must, the more one ruminates on the instructions of the spiritual master, the more one becomes empowered to execute the orders of the spiritual master. We can see Srila Prabhupada is given this instruction to go and preach in the English language, in the West. And he constantly ruminated on the instructions of his spiritual master. And he ruminated and he's thinking, how can I do? And Krishna, sent him when the time is right. Krishna sent him. And what did he send him with? He sent him with this. He sent him with the mission of Tattva Sankhyata. He sent him with the mission of expounding the absolute truth. He sent him on his mission of Atma Pragyayate Niram. He sent him on this mission to enlighten the population, enlighten the Western soul. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prasharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyati Deshatarine. He came to save this Western world from the disease of impersonalism and voidism. And like Srila Prabhupada is saying, so the talks of Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society, or community, but they are for all. And friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them. So should we distribute our Bhagavad Gita to Russia or Ukraine? Who do we do it to? Both. We give it to both of them. Should we go give it to what other countries are fighting? I don't know. The media is not focusing on their fights with so many other countries. But who do we distribute a Bhagavad Gita to? Do we just distribute books to one political party and not the other? No, we give it to everyone. We distribute the books to everyone. Why? Because this is not, everyone is equally entitled to hear them. Why? Jive Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. Krishna Tatashta Shakti Beda Bed Prakash. That because our constitutional position is to be servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we're entitled to actually hear this. This is actually our right. This is our cultural right. This is our God-given right. This is our actual right to know Krishna. This is our actual right. And it's the right of all living entities to know who Krishna is. It's their right. Actually, that's why they're here. That's why they have this human form of life. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Koroyodai. Then this love for Krishna is dormant within everyone's heart. And the best way to awaken that dormant love for Krishna is by giving them Srila Prabhupada's books. Atma Pragyayate Niram. We must actually give Srila Prabhupada's books, and they manifest. How do they manifest? Bhagavan Atma Maya. They manifest it. Srila Prabhupada's books are Atma Maya, Bhagavan Atma Maya. They are completely the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what they are. So when we come and we distribute these books, when we read these books, we're associating with Krishna himself. So we should make it our mission to actually, like Srila Prabhupada saying, don't say, you just somehow they have to spun this out and talking about book distribution. But it's so clear over here that so the talks of the Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society, or community, but they are for all. What does that mean? Distribute Bhagavad Gita to everyone. Distribute Srila Prabhupada's books to everyone. Yare deko tare kaha Krishna upadesh. Whoever you see, whoever you meet, give them Krishna's mercy. Give them Krishna's instructions. What better upadesh is there than Srila Prabhupada's books? Therefore everyone is equally entitled to hear them. So this is a real nectar for which all living entities are always anxious. There's nothing better to do than this. There's nothing better to give than this. Therefore, we should spend our time constantly hearing about and glorifying the Supreme Lord. Because when we do this, we associate with Krishna himself. Every time I was telling Trace, every time you're having a problem with this, you need to use this. Every time you're having a problem with your mind, you have to hear about Krishna. And then that's a very simple thing. It's worked so many times. For me, so many times. So many times having a bad day on book distribution. So many times things going so wrong. But if I simply hear about Krishna from basically from walking from the place where I have my books to the place where I'm distributing my books, even that 1 or 2 minutes just completely solves all the problems of life. And one can know about it only by experiencing it. So this is a humble request. Please do everything possible to hear about Krishna. Why? Because like we were reading it, Bhuri tripyanti me shavaha, that this is the real satisfaction of the soul. We won't find satisfaction by trying to control others. We won't find satisfaction by trying to dominate others. We won't find satisfaction by being condescending rascals to everyone else. We'll only find satisfaction by receiving the message of the Supreme Lord. And how do we receive it? Tadviti pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upatekshanti te jnanam jnanena sattvadarshinaha. That we approach the spiritual master in a humble state of mind, be submissive. We must learn to be submissive to the spiritual master and his representatives. We must learn to be, if you're not, then it's done. We're done with, go ahead. Good luck in the material world. Good luck being kicked around by Maya, So instead of doing that, we must sober up, humble up, and, be willing to have faith in the spiritual master and Krishna. So I'll end the class here. If there's any questions or comments, we can take them now. Ramdas Abhiram, Prabhu.
I want to share one thing based on this purport that you read. Only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in welfare work for all living entities. When a person is actually in the knowledge that Krishna is the fountainhead of everything, then he can act in that spirit. He acts for everyone. The suffering of humanity are due to the forgetfulness of Krishna as the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend. Therefore, to act to revive this consciousness within the entire human society is the highest welfare work. One cannot be engaged in such first-class welfare work without being liberated in the supreme. As a Krishna conscious person has no doubt about the supremacy of Krishna. He has no doubt because he is completely free from all sins. This is the state of divine love.
Jai. Thank you. Anything else?
I was like, Mother Yashoda has a motherly role, but what does it mean for like a newer devotee like myself to experience like a relationship with Krishna?
You experience your relationship with Krishna by serving his pure representatives. Like the Krishna is the best devotee of Krishna is Srimati Radharani, and we are serving in her department. And and in her department, we are in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. And in one purport of Srila Prabhupada, he actually writes that we are known as the Saraswatas because we're coming in the line of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And then what's this? Yeah. Vrishabhanu Sutra Daitanu Charam Charanashitarenu Dharastamaham Mahadadbhuta Pavana Shakti Padam Pranamami Sada Prabhupada Padam. Then, the person who's very, very dear to Srimati Radharani is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And, we consider ourselves, there's a prayer to him, that very fortunate to have taken the dust of his lotus feet and smeared it all over our body. Therefore, we offer our humble and respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet, which are inconceivably purifying and uplifting to the fallen conditioned souls. So your relationship with Krishna is made by serving the Guru Parampara, by having the link to the Guru Parampara. So by doing what you're doing, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Pramanai sasadacharaya sadhabhyasya nirantaram bodhayanatmanatmanam bhaktim apyutamam labhat. That the highest devotion is attained in slow degrees. By constant endeavor for self-realization, by following the path of the previous devotees, or the Pramanai sasadacharayas, and by scriptural injunctions. And these three things. Basically by following Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, very strictly, then that's how the highest devotion is revealed in small degrees. It doesn't happen overnight. And if you meet like some cool looking devotees with cool beards and they tell you, hey, I'll make you a gopi in 3 days, bro, come with me. Know them to be bogus, Okay, is that good? Anything else? We have 15 seconds. Okay. All right, so Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.